Disclaimer: I'm shit at racing games. I'm playing this with WASD keybinds and I don't have a controller. And frankly, my performance is somewhat hindered by neither knowing nor caring how to play this game competitively. If my piss poor performance in races makes you think that I'm less of a man, frankly, you need to get out more. Being good at sports games makes you no more manly than being good at Call of Duty makes you a fucking expert at warfare. But try telling that to keyboard ninjas on gun forums. Riders Republic is a rather special game, and in many ways it's a pure distillation of Ubisoft's core values. And it incidentally also represents the perfect example of late stage video games. It's a giant shop with a thin layer of unfinished live service video game smeared over the top of it. Riders Republic is an open world, single or multiplayer sports racing shop. I mean game. The player travels off to a hyper-realistic, cartoony version of an amalgamation of about 5 different US national parks, which is kaleidoscopically violated with advertising hoardings, sports tracks, and a recreational meeting/social area where you can buy stuff with real money, whilst being exposed to other people's cosmetic outfits. Riders Republic boasts the same degree of aesthetic and ethical subtlety that one might attain if a multi-billionaire grand wizard turned up at Yellowstone Park and decided to turn it into a giant Ku Klux Klan themed activity centre. Put it this way, if anyone made a real natural environment look like this multicoloured commercial shithole, Greta Thunberg would jump in her yacht and come sailing right at you so she could give you a big dose of blah blah blah. It's developed by Ubisoft Annecy, famous for Igor Monceau's creative leadership. You know, he's the dude that got promoted into Serge Hasco's job after the scandals about him drugging staff and screaming in people's faces. They're famous for making too many Assassin's Creed games, not fucking up parts of the Division 1 as much as Ubisoft Malmo did, and hiring Drew Reckner, that nice fella from State of the Game that told those porky pies about the max player count in the Dark Zone. Oh sorry, bullshitting is called misspeaking these days. I really should keep up to date with modern social conventions, because, you know, they seem to be having such a positive outcome in the world. The history of dangerous sports can be traced all the way back to antiquity. It was originally invented by Icarus in ancient Greek mythology. I have no fucking clue where ancient Greek mythology is, but I put it into Google Maps and it just took me to Delphi, which is closed, apparently. Icarus invented the world's first hang glider made out of feathers and shit, figuratively, and because he was a tit, he flew too high and got himself killed. Throughout history, people have strived to outdo each other in many extreme sports arenas. Extreme Christian line wrestling, hardcore vertical planking, full contact catch, stunt flying, and my personal favourite, full contact, no rules street wrestling. My money's on the little fella with the rifle. Besides, one of the other guys looks like a creeper. All these fun and games ultimately culminated in what we see today, the very zenith of millennia of extreme sports evolution. Soapbox racing. You know soapbox racing? It's that sport that happens in cities all over the world, where all the contestants allegedly have to sign onerous non-disclosure agreements so nobody talks about their injuries. Don't believe me? Google it. You will likely only find one story about anyone ever getting injured at one of those kinds of events, and that dude died. So I guess the NDA didn't work. Not even kidding. Ever wondered why you see those soapbox crashes and people flying through the air, but never see anyone being taken off in an ambulance and news services talking about it? I dare you, try and find any news stories about the injured. Dangerous sports are a bit like the middle-class version of professional boxing. It's an activity that superficially looks like a great way to get rich and or famous, because of the 1 in a million people that become incredibly successful. But the harsh reality is that most people who have a go at it end up in hospital, or aren't even lucky enough to make it there. She ended up falling off a cliff. He smashed into the ground. He smashed into the ground a lot. His bike melted. No, literally it melted. He ended up hitting a bridge and then hitting the ground. And not all of him landed in the same spot. And they broke a freefall world record. And one of their necks. And this bloke tried to sail across the English Channel in a fucking bathtub. And naturally, he made it. So yes, the moral of the story is if you decide to get into dangerous or extreme sports, anything involving a bathtub is probably a safe bet. Unless, of course, it involves a bathtub and a ski slope. As long as there have been stupid things to do, there has always been one even more stupider idiot standing nearby, right on the spot to thrust their hand in the air, volunteer and shout, "Yeah, I'll try it. It will be radical." I have nothing but respect for members of the extreme sports community. They are certainly braver, more noble, and vastly more stupid than me, the latter being a significant boast, incidentally. I'm merely pointing out that not everyone in extreme sports makes it home, or at least makes it home without an airlift. Still, it certainly helped provide plenty of grisly footage for the early days of YouTube, before they went all corpo-friendly and triggered. So there is that. So what is Riders Republic? It's a pile of excremental fuck. That's what it is. You engage in the following sports: skiing, cycling, jetpacking, boredom, snowboarding, rockets, cycling stuff, mountain biking, playing dress-up Barbie, hanging out with cretins, and probably some other activities that I misnamed or didn't notice because I hate sports. I even have my mouse on the high sensitivity setting because if I have to move it more than 3 inches in a fucking video game, I consider that as technically qualifying as exercise. The irony isn't lost on me that Ubisoft can't even make a sports racing game without it being open world. Fuck, if I got a group of Ubisoft creative directors to design a fucking toilet cubicle, they would try and somehow make that open world. So yes, this is an open world racing sports game. But to their credit, riding around the wilderness exploring isn't actually the most painful activity you could spend time engaged with. You play alone or with friends or with randos. Do stuff, level up, get new gear, cap collectibles, and get hassled to buy stuff in the shop. And this is a sentence I could have copy and pasted out of any Ubisoft review from the last few years. And what I just said about copy and pasting that sentence was copy and pasted out of a previous Ubisoft review. Naturally, because Ubisoft, all your activities are organised around a central hub, because that's what they always do. Whether it be the base of operations in The Division, the cave in Twin Falls Mountain in Ghost Recon Failpoint, or Ravensthorpe in Arse Creed Valhalla. There is basically always a central hub. These days, it always has an in-game shop. And of late, you can access said shop from the menus wherever you are. Because Ubisoft. The meeting place in Riders Republic is almost exactly like a fluorescent, hellish alternative reality version of the base in Ghost Recon Failpoint, only with brighter colours, a higher concentration of arseholes, and not enough guns. And trust me, a few guns could be put to good work in this locale. Why leave it to the Darwin Awards? The core location is basically a giant shop, collided into a fashion show runway, where players can hang out with other players and cry about the fact that some other tit has a better giraffe hat than them. It's everything rotten in video games, and precisely what happens when one of the world's biggest corporate entertainment shitheels hires large swathes of the world's most amoral psychologists and gambling specialists and sets them all to work on a predation delivery system. Respect where respect is due. Riders Republic certainly got the predation aspect of the game completely nailed down. Functionality and fuckery. Well, right off the bat, it's a game designed to be used with a controller on PC. At no point do they warn PC players prior to purchasing it, and once you buy it, Ubisoft does not allow refunds. Seriously, fuck those guys. The game, incidentally, is an unfinished live service shitshow. In fact, this game is so unfinished, they haven't even got around to implementing the Chinese subtitles yet. Look, you guys have watched my videos enough to know what's going on here. There is no plot twist or bait and switch going to happen today. It's a Ubisoft game. Therefore, it's open world, it's live service, it's buggy and unfinished, it's always online, it's massively hyped, and they leverage the recipients of their advertising budget and content creators to tell you that it's fucking brilliant. Allegedly. The only thing that works 100% of the time is the fucking shop, and it's stuffed full of so many hideous and grotesque cosmetic outfits that the very fact that people pay money for this shit makes me question my very faith in humanity. And what is going on with the text-to-speech?
Press any key to start.
Why is it on by default? People can fucking see the menus, right? If players are gonna ride down the side of a fucking mountain on a snowboard and they can't see the screen, they have bigger problems than the fucking options menu. Besides, if they can't see the options, why the fuck is text-to-speech telling them they can turn text-to-speech off? Do you just randomly click with your mouse and text-to-speech tells you if you're getting warmer?
Up a bit. Left a bit. Well done. I have been deactivated. Good luck in your downhill high-speed bicycle race.
I'm sorry if I sound cynical, and I'm very sorry if there's someone out there that needs text-to-speech for reasons about which I am blissfully ignorant. But the reality is that Ubisoft only does this shit so diligently because accessibility is the only possible way for Ubisoft to win a video game award these days. Science fact. Okay, science fact-ish. They got 2 nominations for the Accessibility Awards in 2020 and still managed to lose to Last of Us 2. It goes without saying that the gaming experience is as clunky as fuck on PC. This game was built for consoles and a console controller, and the only small concession they made to PC players was copy and pasting some keybinds over to PC. And they even managed to fuck that up. I swapped the up-down control for jetpack so it conforms to the inverted Y-axis controls that I'm used to from flight sims. And now when I'm in the communal area, Shit Creek or whatever it's called, hanging out with the village idiots, my forward and backward walking controls are reversed too. If you go into the map, hitting escape won't back you out. You end up in a menu, then have to hit escape again, then hit M to go back out of the map. You know the drill. It's the classic example of a video game built on console architecture with only a token effort to map some of the buttons over for all the PC users that can't get a refund now. I'm sure players with better skills than me. Sorry, I'll restart that sentence. I'm sure players can master how to control the rocket pack with WASD controls with mouse look. But personally, I didn't have the time or motivation to practice. Frankly, I think I'd probably do a better job with a real rocket pack. And by better job, I mean it would take me 10 or even 15 seconds to smash my face into the side of a fucking rock. Seriously, for me personally, the jetpacks were a fucking joke to control. Halfway through a race, when it switches from bike control to rocket control, I was suddenly forced to switch to a reversed left hand right hand position, where now my right hand was controlling motion on the arrow keys, my left hand was now only controlling the brake, and I had to operate mouse look with my face. I don't know what kind of mutants they have working at Ubisoft, but most players only have 2 hands. Tops! How the fuck am I supposed to control 3 different things at the same time? Actually, technically that's a lie. I do know what kind of mutants they have working at Ubisoft. And whilst they have a alleged reputation for being very handsy, touching people with their hands without permission, and generally being very enthusiastic to use their hands in the workplace, full stop, despite all of the many stories and allegations I have read about Ubisoft managers getting into trouble for the way they use their hands on their staff, none of them mentioned that they had fucking 3 of them. And before anyone says, why didn't you just rebind the keys then? Well, last time I rebound a key binding on rocket packs, I ended up permanently walking back to front every time I was on foot. And this is all going to become increasingly problematic for some PC players who rebind keys and don't have a controller. Because early game, you can just stick to the games that work, but as you advance there are more and more hybrid races which switch between disciplines. So you will be merrily racing away on a bike, and then magically be teleported into a rocket-powered wingsuit for the next leg of the race, and realise that you are completely screwed now because you can't control the damn thing without your mum in the room to use the mouse look controls for you. On a positive note, I managed to get through that whole section about Ubisoft and hands without once mentioning that manager that choked the girl out in the bar. Now that is a sign that I'm maturing as a content creator and as a human. So what's my overall take on Riders Republic? Well, it's not a republic, is it? We're not equal partners in this civil endeavour. There is us, the abused customers, entirely at the whim of, and now you signed the end user license agreement, contractually obliged to, a service provider that has absconded legally and formally from the following responsibilities: providing a serviceable product, any damage caused to your system, any consequences of shutting down the service, any consequences of banning your account for any reason. All that aside, the game is not very good, really. It's not terrible. It's just an arcadey, dumbed down monetised activity centre for the easily pleased. It's just a game with many activities, none of which are executed with excellence. It's a high-res tablet racing game, with the in-game sales of a mobile app. The following footage is me just holding down the accelerator and not bothering to steer. I think this gives you a fairly good idea of the physics, or lack thereof. Let's not mince around like a 14-year-old in a strip club. Riders Republic is built from the ground up to be a vehicle for selling microtransactions. I'm not saying the microtransactions are bad, which they obviously are. I'm stating clearly that this entire venture was built from its very foundation with the pure purpose of being a microtransaction delivery system. Pure and fucking simple. It's like Watch Dogs Legion. Why do you think they have so much cosmetic product placement in all of the Ubisoft cinematic trailers? That's not an accident. That's not a stylistic choice. That's sales and marketing. Well, do not let that premise fade from your mind. This is not a game plus in-game sales. This is a shop. That is its purpose. And the game is the storefront with free mini-games to occupy you. Riders Republic has day one microtransactions, day one content, time-gated cosmetic offers. It's not pay to win for now, but I'm sure they will find some way to engineer that shit into the game later. Maybe they already have. The game and player performance is heavily gear dependent. I have no doubt Ubisoft monetisers and psychologists have sat around the table discussing giving players a little temporary invisible performance boost every time they spend money in the shop, to give them that subliminal psychological incentive to buy more. There are no loot boxes or pedo caches just yet, but give them time. A core problem with Riders Republic as I see it is that it's a one-trick pony. The only real fun I had in game was from that intense head rush you get from high-speed kinetic gameplay and the visual illusion that tricks your lizard brain that you're actually speeding through terrain, therefore triggering that delightful, exhilarating video game head rush. The thing is, you can get it better elsewhere for less money. Christ, you can get it better elsewhere for free. This is the key selling point of Riders Republic. It's an essential part of any racing game. And it does it, sure, but not that well. The game mechanics are best described as sub Mario Kart with less fidelity. I'm serious, I played Mario Kart on my mate's handheld and it felt more responsive and polished than this. Essentially the game is trying to be all things to all players, and as a result masters nothing. It's trying to be a cycling game, skiing game, a flying game, a snowboarding game, and a rocket bicycle thing game, and pushes out in so many directions half-heartedly with so little commitment that each individual sport feels like a bit of an unfinished brush job. There's a lot to be said for doing one thing right. Well, Riders Republic does everything wrong, but in its defence, it does do a lot of things wrong. But it is open world, so at least some of those Ghost Recon and AC Valhalla assets got put to good use. Again. And after some thought and some reflection, the best way I can describe the core activities in Riders Republic is this. You know when you're playing some first person shooter game, story mode, and they have a cutaway segment where you're transported to a plane, a tank or spaceship for one scene? One interesting, usually dramatic, but nevertheless cobbled together mini-game scene. Like in Battlefield Vagina, where you take control of a tiger tank for about 2.5 minutes for a land battle, then get teleported straight onto some other cutscene activity. Well, imagine a whole sports game made up of moments like that. Riders Republic feels like stocking filler minigames, gift-wrapped and amalgamated and sold as a grown-up full game. And I don't think any of the individual activities are good enough to keep people playing. I ain't gonna lie, I enjoyed the head rush of the downhill bike games, despite their appalling physics. I liked the downhill ski jumps, despite its wank binary controls using the keyboard. But as much as I had my little moments of fun, and this game was vastly less unpleasant to review than Far Cry shit, I am going to pose the following fair and I think honest question. Can anyone, and I'm talking customer or staff member at Ubisoft, can anyone really claim that there is enough going on of a high enough calibre in Riders Republic to keep people seriously engaged long term? Riders Republic is an idiot factory, and maybe there are a lot more idiots in this world than I imagined. And maybe my fellow idiots will be enthralled by this low-effort theme park and its shitty clothes boutique. But I can see why people played some other games for hours every day, and they did that for months or even years. Call of Duty, Battlefield, Fallout, Rainbow Six Siege, Peggle, The Division 1, Grand Theft Auto. But this? Seriously? Because that mountain biking stuff is fun, and I enjoyed playing it for 30 minutes before jogging off for a wank and a nap. And I was happy to come back later for another 30 minutes. But fuck me, I've done that with Minesweeper, and I didn't even need to take a break. This game lacks depth, it's too arcadey to be taken seriously, very gear dependent, and it's all too easily manipulated to push microtransactions. Unless bicycles turn you on and you have a fetish for giraffes, not that I'm judging, I don't think there's enough going on here to warrant them charging for this game. If the game was some free-to-play effort, it wouldn't be so bad. But what's the payoff for the investment here? More fucking cosmetic outfits? I'm sorry, but this is not a AAA game, and if you think it is, well, fuck me. Let me introduce you to Angry Birds. That shit is gonna blow your mind. Basically, the game is an unfinished shit state. It's buggy as fuck, and the underlying physics ain't great to start with. And I'm making a wild and frankly generous assumption here that the game actually has physics. Just watch me ride around for 5 minutes without steering, bouncing like a fucking pinball. Just watch me riding down a river in a snowmobile. I personally think that if you can jump on a snowmobile in an extreme sports game, stamp on the gas, fold your arms and not steer, and 5 minutes later you're still doing fine without crashing, possibly, just fucking possibly, you need to delete the word extreme off your advertising and press releases. The only thing about this game that is extreme is that you can cheese the environmental modelling by abusing the handbrake mechanic to scale vertical cliffs. And I ain't talking steep, I'm talking vertical. You can literally abuse the terrain mechanics by using the handbrake like a mobile piton and crank your snowmobile up the side of mountains. Fucking mountain goats don't have shit on me. In fact, the terrain seems to have very limited categories and parameters. Smooth stuff for travelling on, bumpy stuff for bumping off, solid stuff for smashing your face into. And all the smooth terrain has a value to define how steep it is, which in turn defines how fast you slide down it, and much more interestingly, how long it takes me to scale up it on a fucking skidoo. Yes, the all-conquering snowmobile, according to Ubisoft Annecy, the only all-terrain vehicle that can also ride on water and violate the laws of gravity. Climbing the north face of the Eiger? Give me a fucking skidoo and I'll have it cracked by lunchtime. See you at the summit, guys. Last one to the top is a Ubisoft manager. And by the way, what is up with hitting solid stuff at low speeds? It usually always bounces you off at a precise 90-degree angle of deflection. Just at a right angle. How about they go wild and mix it up a bit? Because from where I'm sitting, it certainly looks like the default setting for a low speed collision is set at precisely 90 degrees, left or right. One rule. Then they all fucked off down the pub. Whilst I was off driving my snowmobile down a river, because the physics engine has everything set to default or some such shit, I was also treated to the added comedy of seeing all my computer generated fake friends show up to give the illusion that I'm playing with lots of other people, only the game doesn't register that I'm swimming down whitewater rapids on a skidoo, so a bunch of bikers turn up in the river too, to do stunts. The game is a mess. And don't even get me started about the terrain hang-ups, the glitches, or the fact that sometimes my character model doesn't generate properly and I look like I'm teleporting in fucking Star Trek for the whole race. I played one entire match in black and white. This game was built on the fly and launched unready. The shop is working fine, the cosmetic apparel is working fine. The game, however, that's as fucked as a naive intern at Ubisoft. And the skiing had no button for snowplow. Why can't I just chill and do a nice, slow snowplow down the slope? Would that really be so bad? Why do I have to rush all the time? I resent the fact there is no hardcore mode with full gore graphic injuries. It's ridiculous. These kind of dangerous sports are a bloodbath. There's usually a queue outside of the clinic and hospital airlifts on permanent standby. Just a bit of advice. If your fucking holiday insurance for some distant shithole excludes certain activities, it's because those activities are 1. Dangerous, 2. The injuries are expensive to heal, perhaps not even possible. So yeah, when I smash my snowmobile into the ground at terminal velocity, I want to see that girl's head smash like a fucking watermelon. I paid my money for dangerous sports. Where is the danger I paid for? I would note this game is probably bad for young gamers on many levels. It's an entire game constructed to amplify addictive tendencies in order to get players to fleece their own or their parents' credit cards. When the primary expository idiot tells you about the moon-based shithole, they make some reference to how it lets them really connect with nature. What a drooling, bubble-blowing cretin. Since when has logging and deforesting an entire mountain and building a fucking cafe and ski lift been about nature? Do golf courses let people get closer to nature? If I built a car park on top of a native village in a remote part of the Amazon jungle, would people parking their SUVs there be getting closer to nature? Ever considered going camping, love? Ubisoft is always banging on about its values, so let's deconstruct the values presented in this particular Ubisoft outing. The natural environment needs to have theme parks built on them. How your character looks in a video game is more important than the actual game itself. Kids are legitimate targets for predation. Games don't have to be finished prior to going on sale. Those are their values, right there. If I turned around to the average person and said I was going to explore nature in Florida, most people would think the Everglades. Ubisoft creative directors would probably think Disney World. I sincerely apologise to you guys for not spending hundreds of hours playing this game, mastering all the techniques, buying a controller for my PC and investing time, money and effort into completely mastering it, and probably destroying my soul in the process. But in my defence, Riders Republic is, let's face it, a bit of a waste of life. It's a below average racing sports game wrapped around a giant in-game shop. I can give you a list of reasons why this game is a bad deal before even getting into the subject of the poor gameplay. If you want a head rush, there are 50 games out there that do it better. If you want racing, the same applies. This game is only a good choice for you if you like finger banging your mum's credit card and spending money on cosmetic items that will be entirely meaningless to you in the coming months when some other game with shitty microtransactions launches. Call of Duty, Battlefield 2042. Riders Republic is everything sinister, creepy and predatory about video games. Every single person involved with this game should throw their computer in a dumpster and head to the nearest church, temple or mosque, go inside and beg for spiritual counsel and guidance from the first person they meet. I don't give a fuck if it's the person who cleans the toilets, because even a bog washer in a temple has higher spiritual status than the morally bankrupt shitehawks who worked on a game solely purposed to extract money from idiots, addicts and kids. Even the creeper priest who hangs around with the choir boys has higher moral standing than these guys. Riders Republic is peak live service video games, and anyone shilling or promoting this game should just be honest with themselves. Stop rationalising what you're doing and just start directly robbing people instead of doing it by proxy. Just admit to yourself who you are and start mugging grannies and carjacking single mums. This game is all smoke and mirrors. It's a giant trap to get kids all in one place, get them all looking at each other's outfits and sell them pointless shit from the pedo shop. It's precisely predating on the current new generation of gamers that are growing up thinking that loot is something you have to buy in video games, because they haven't ever known much else. This is a subpar game with tremendously overreaching monetization. You don't need a deep dive in-depth video with interviews to tell you that. And this is launch day I'm talking about. That shop is only going to get fuller. This doesn't require deep analysis. Besides, I've got more important videos to make. Fuck, I've got more important nostrils to pick. But everyone who took money to promote this game should be ashamed, as should the managers that conceived it. But fret ye not, Riders Republic is not without a few positives. It's free if you already have Uplay Plus subscription. It has an exit to desktop button. It shuts down relatively quickly, and to the best of my knowledge, no young developers were harmed or even choked in the making of this video game. But for now, good luck. and happy hunting.